All right. Hey guys, topic 3.7. We're looking at the diffusion of religion and language. Okay, so if you haven't read the reading yet, I recommend you read that because it has a lot of the information that I'm going to cover a little bit. Okay, but of course I'll be covering the important aspects of this topic. All right. So first things first, the enduring understanding and learning objective. So, enduring understanding, I think we've covered this before, right? The interaction of people contributes to the spread of cultural practices, right? But the learning objective here will be to explain what factors lead to the diffusion of universalizing and ethnic religions, right? So, first we're going to look at languages, though, and we kind of already did that in class, all right? So, classifying languages and mapping languages. Right? The first step in classifying languages is to classify world languages, okay? So, globally, we can classify it into this, if you want to do it pretty simple, right? Language families, subfamilies, and individual languages, right? If we were to get a little bit deeper into it, it would be family, branch, group, and then dialect, okay? So the primary language in the world today is the Proto-Indo-European language family, right? So, um, that's the one, right? With English, right? With French, with Spanish, Italian, right? All that good stuff. Okay, the Germanic languages, the Slavic languages. Okay, so I've shown you this map before. You can kind of see where the Indo-European languages kind of spread out through the world, and it's pretty obvious to see that, right? It's the most common, all right. But of course, there's the Sino-Tibetan, right, which is pretty popular. There's the Afro-Asiatic language group that's pretty popular. The Altai language, right, in Turkey and much of the Middle Asia, right. And then of course there's the Niger-Congo language family. Okay, and you kind of explored what some of the languages in here are, all right? Again, you can kind of see world language families, kind of breaking it up a little bit this time into kind of the language branches here, right? So you'll see where the Germanic languages are. You'll see where the Romance languages are. Okay. So important to know a couple of languages, you guys. If you ever want to take a look here and review, I think some of the important languages to know, right, is English, right? What family is that from? Pretty easy, right? Spanish, what language and branch is that from? Arabic, Chinese. Okay, Swahili is another one. All right. So yeah, let's kind of focus on the Indo-European language family, all right? So, I mean, most of the widely spoken branches within this family, right, is the Germanic branch, spoken primarily in Northwestern Europe and North America, divided into high and low Germanic subgroups, right? It includes English, German, Dutch, Swedish, right? So on and so on. Likely to be Protestant, by the way. Then there's the Indo-Iranian branch, which has the most speakers of the Indo-European family. And it's, again, no surprise, right? Because it's in South Asia, right, where India is and all of that. So it includes Hindi, the official language of India, right? So these people who speak these languages are most likely going to be Hindu or Muslim. Okay. So again, think of kind of that hierarchy of languages, kind of like a tree, where the root is the family, and then of course you've got all the branches, and then you got all the bushes here, right? Individual languages. Of course, within those bushes, right, you'll find dialects, right? Let's see, where were we? Right, continuing with the Indo-Iranian branch, there's the Iranian Western group, all right, spoken in Iran and neighboring countries, right, includes Persian, right, and language is written in Arabic alphabet. Okay, again, here's a map here looking at the Germanic language group here, kind of getting a sense, right? And of course, you'll know what language people speak just based on the name of the country, right? Sometimes you won't. All right. Third is the Balto-Slavic branch, spoken primarily in Eastern Europe, divided into East Slavic and Baltic groups. Most widely used in languages Russian. And of course, there are other languages or other groups within that, like the West and South Slavic groups, including Polish, Czech, Slavic, right, Serbo-Croatian. Then the last branch here in the Indo-European family is the Romance branch, which evolved from the Latin language, which was spoken by the Romans 2,000 years ago, right? So you'll see it mainly in Southwestern Europe, in Latin America, and you'll see Spanish, Portuguese, French, and Italian are the most widely used languages here. And people who speak these languages probably going to be Catholic, most likely. Okay, so again, the Indo-European branches, just looking at Europe, you can kind of see the diversity, right? The Indo-Iranian, the Romance, the Balto-Slavic, of course there's Armenian there, Celtic, right? Which includes Irish. So you've got all that. All right, and I've taken this image here. Maybe it's a little bit blurry, right? But from a book here about the distribution of language families, just so you can look at it a little bit more. Okay. Similar to the other map I showed you. Okay. But going a little bit deeper here into the Indo-European language families, we can kind of see the origins of these languages, right? It's theorized that the Germanic, Romance, the Balto-Slavic, and Indo-Iranian languages all stem from a common ancestral language that's sometimes called the Proto-Indo-European, which kind of stand off right here in the middle of Europe and the Middle East here. Right, but of course it's kind of debated where this all is. But yeah, I think it's important to note as well that about half of the world's population speaks one of the 445 living languages that are part of the Indo-European language family. Okay, but that being said, the Proto-Indo-European, theorized this language family that supposedly existed. The prototype for Greek, Latin, and Sanskrit, which again is where most of the Indo-European languages kind of take their words from. So there are two theories of diffusion with the Indo-European language. You've got the nomadic warrior hypothesis, which the fact that the first Proto-Indo-Euro speakers were nomadic people, and they were near the Russian and Kazakhstan border and conquered much of Europe in these years. Okay. Then there's the sedentary farmer hypothesis, where the first speakers lived 2,000 years before the Kyrgyz in eastern Anatolia, which is Turkey, by the way, diffused westward to Greece and Italy. So this is kind of the nomadic warrior hypothesis here, right? You've got Kyrgyz migration to the west. Okay. And then here you've got the sedentary farmer hypothesis. Okay. So again, take a look. Yep, you kind of see that. So two theories behind that, right? Again, right, I'm showing you this as, kind of a way to think about the diffusion of language, so specifically the Indo-European family, right? And how you can see this big diversity in languages, all right? And of course, this, happened over, hundreds of years, all right? Then we've got the origin and diffusion of English, right? Formed as a mixture of several linguistic influences, English that is, right? Celtic, the Germanic languages, French, Latin, and also borrowing from other languages. And when we look at the diffusion of English, it's mainly a hierarchical diffusion, right? So English, of course, one of the most widely spoken languages in the world, right? 400 million speakers, 1 billion people have it, know as their second language, right? And as you all know, it's the lingua franca of the world. Okay, so modern English, evolved primarily from languages spoken by 3 Germanic tribes invading the British Isles. So, people who lived there were speaking, the kind of Celtic kind of type of language. But once these 3 Germanic tribes invaded the British Isles, right, the Angles, the Jutes, and the Saxons, right, that's when you kind of see that mix, right? And over time, others invaded England. Their languages influenced basic English, right? The Vikings from present-day Norway, the Normans from the present-day Normandy in France, right? Where French was kind of, the main language, official language for a while, but eventually switched to English, right? So yeah, English language migrated with the people of England when they established colonies as well, right? And I think that's pretty well known, right? When we talk about colonialism and imperialism, right? English being the official language for the British colonies, right, in America, or what comes to be America, right? and rest of the diffusion to North America. Okay, and again, you can kind of see that influence, right, of English across the world, where the British Empire at its height, where it mainly was, right, this region, right, Southern Africa and India, right, Australia. And of course, you'll see where it's not widely spoken, right? That's where you'll find other language families. Okay. But yeah, the impact of language diffusion, you guys. These examples on the left here, you can kind of see some of the words that were kind of, I guess you could say created, right, due to the invasion of and conquering of these groups, right, in the British Isles, where English was created, by the way, right. But then, of course, when we're thinking of cultural convergence and divergence, we can think of in terms of languages with that, right? When we think of language convergence, right, we might think of Spanglish, right, where you've got some a mixture of English and Spanish words. Right? You got language divergence, right? And that might happen because of group boundaries or barriers, whether it's physical or created, right? Like Papua New Guinea, for example, even though it's considerably smaller than the United States, right? There are more than 800 languages there. That's mainly due to its its physical terrain, right? Or you can think of North and South Korea, right? You can think of that border in the 38th parallel there, right? One country is open to foreign interaction, the other is not, and that's kind of influenced, the creation or borrowing from other languages, right? So South Korea, of course, being open to foreign interaction, right? Whether it's through like pop culture, for example, right? You kind of see words being thrown in there in Korean that otherwise wouldn't have existed, right? Languages, we could also look at it through toponyms and gender roles, right? So if we look at toponyms, right, as regimes change, leaders sometimes change the name of the cities and streets under their control. I didn't put it here, right, but you could think of St. Petersburg, for example, right, in Russia. How that's kind of gone through different names in the past, right? If we look at the Russian Empire, and then we look at the Soviet Union, and then we look at the Russian Federation today, right? Or we could look at religious place names like Los Angeles, for example, right? Las Vegas, San Francisco, right? And then, of course, gender roles as well, right? As people bring in their religions, their languages, they usually bring in their gender roles or what they think the gender roles are, right? So I think it's we know at this point Western culture equals Western gender roles, where women have more education, typically represented more in government, right? And we could also see language evolve through immigration as well, right? And as they bring in their gender roles, their idea of what gender roles should be. And there's also preserving endangered languages as well. Many languages are dying off and have died off in the past. You know, you could just look at the Celtic group, for example, and kind of see what some countries and people are doing to kind of maintain and preserve these endangered languages, right? So Irish, for example, English road signs are banned in some places with Irish band writing, or sometimes they're Irish bands, I should say, writing lyrics in Irish, right? Welsh, like the might be taught in school, right? Or Irish Gaelic, Scottish Gaelic, for example. Okay, so again, it's kind of looking at languages. Feel free to look back and kind of study a little bit more. But let's look at languages, okay? There's going to be a lot to cover here, okay? So shouldn't be, I hope it's not too confusing, right? I think once maybe your mind will be refreshed once you hear some of the things here. But again, we're not going to be looking at all these religions. We're just going to be looking at Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Sikhism, Hinduism, Judaism, right? But of course, it's important to know the symbols, right, of each religion. It just shows, that people's cultures, right? Because again, religion is part of people's culture. So, important to know where these religions are located in the world. you can see, even though you see different colors here, right? This is, mainly where Christianity is located, right? Europe, North America, South America, right? You'll see it mainly, Catholic, Protestant. Okay. You'll see where Islam is mainly located in Northern Africa, right? In Western Asia, or the Middle East. Okay, you'll see Hinduism is mainly located in India, right? Buddhism, mostly East Asia, right? Southeast Asia. All right. So it's important to know at a national scale what where religions are located. But it's also good to think regionally and locally, right? Because that can reveal a lot as well. Even though this map's from the 2000s, it's pretty accurate, I think, still to how Christianity is, I guess you could say, divided. Uh, all of Europe here, or not Europe, in the United States, right? You can see Baptist Christians, Catholic Christians, right? Mormons or the Latter-day Saints, right? Lutherans, Methodists. Okay, important to know that. Also important to know how many people practice, each of the major religions in the world, right? And clearly, I don't think it should come as a surprise. Christianity is the most, popular religion in the world with 2.1 billion. Islam comes at second with 1.5 billion. Hinduism, since it's mainly in India, right? No surprises, right? 900 million. I say closer to a billion now. Buddhism, Judaism. Of course, there are tons of other religions here that we could get into. That also have a pretty big following, but we're not going to look at that. Mainly due to the fact that the CDE is only asking that we look at a couple of religions here. And one more map for you map lovers there, right? With the major religious hearths of each religion, kind of where they started, the origins. So you'll see that, pretty much Asia, right? The Middle East, right? From there on, they diffuse, right? And that's what we'll be looking at. Okay, yeah, as I was saying, right? How they diffuse over time. But before we get into that, we gotta kind of define here what universalizing and ethnic religions are, okay? So, universalizing religions, that's what we are the first few religions we're going to look at are universalizing religions. So I'm kind of going to start off down here, right? They're basically attempts, universalizing religions, of course. What they try to do is they attempt to appeal to a wide variety of people, and their memberships is kind of open for everybody, right? They don't really take into account, where a person's from, their language, their ethnicity, right? As long as they accept the faith and take it, right? So universalizing religions, there's a precise place of origins and based on the events in the life of men there, okay? Ethnic religions, they're closely tied with a particular ethnic group, generally in, one specific particular reason, right? And when we look at the origins, it's kind of unknown, it's kind of unclear, it's not really tied to a single historical individual like universalizing religion might be, okay? So as I was saying, right, specific events kind of lead to the diffusion and division of universalizing religions. And we'll be looking into that, right? So universalizing religions, right, kind of in there, universal, right, taking everybody, ethnic religions, right, they kind of try to preserve the culture and the ethnicity, right, of that religion pretty well. Okay. So let's start off with Christianity here, okay? So there's kind of this table here to kind of help you kind of think about, organize it pretty well, right? 3 groups, subgroups, or sects, right, in total, right? At least major ones: Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, Protestant. Diffusion starts off in the Middle East, goes into Europe, and then the Americas through colonialism, right? Beliefs: single founder is Jesus, right? A man believed to be the Son of God, who taught to love and care for everybody, right? The Holy Book, the Bible, sacred sites, Jerusalem, right? For Catholics, Vatican City, right? Belief in the 10 Commandments, right? Of course, there's more in the Bible, but the 10 Commandments kind of is the frame of that. And I think the symbol, a lot of us kind of know what it is, right? The letter T, right, or cross, right? So as I was saying, relocation and expansion, diffusion is kind of what spreads Christianity, and actually, all of the universalizing religions, right? So disciples carried out the message, So the story goes, Jesus is born, he eventually begins spreading the word of God and everything, and he takes his 12 disciples. He gets crucified, Jesus, that is. And after that, disciples kind of carry out his message throughout the Roman Empire, which is successful, right? Because Roman Empire ends up making Christianity the official religion, right? And for the next 1,000 years, it's the formal religion. Missionaries travel to new regions to promote the religion. But from there, it kind of gets a little bit complicated. Um, there's a complicated history of war, of divisions in Christianity, of corruption within the church, Catholic Church, both historically and recent. You got the Protestant Reformation, right? So Christianity is complex and, it's a study in and of itself. But what I really want to focus on is the diffusion, right? So starts off, kind of here, modern day Israel and Jerusalem, kind of spreads into Europe first, goes to Asia at the same time, Africa, but with colonialism and imperialism, it goes on to North America and South America and Southern Africa. Okay, so again, here's kind of a summary of the diffusion of Christianity, right? Starts off with relocation, right? Because disciples are kind of moving, from town to town, right? And then it goes on to expansion diffusion later on with hierarchical, right? Because it kind of starts from the top, right? When an emperor converts and it becomes an official religion. Then contagious, as people move around, spread through word of mouth. Others start sharing, and you've got the religion being shared, right? And recently, Africa is where it's the most widely practiced religion. Okay, of course, just an image there of Jesus for you. If you didn't know what he looked like, or what depictions of him usually are, right? Eastern Orthodox Church, it's kind of hard not to see, a Christian church, right? Obviously there'll be a cross, right? Sometimes an image of Jesus or the disciples or of Mary, all right? Vatican City for you, right? Catholic Church is very elaborate in Europe, right? Or sometimes simplistic like this, okay? Protestant churches, right? So, I think we're all pretty much familiar with Christianity, so I'll move on. Islam is next, right? 1.8 billion, two sects, right? The Sunni and Shia, right? So again, story of Islam is pretty complex, and as a study, in of itself again, right? But to kind of break it down for you, starts off in Mecca, moves across North Africa into Southeast Asia. Founders Muhammad, the holy book is known as the Quran. Sacred site Mecca, right? Obviously where it started, right? And the 5 pillars of Islam, which I'll show you in a second. The symbol, I think, it's also pretty easy to see. It's kind of a crescent moon and a star next to that moon, right? So of course, Islam starts off here in the Arabian Peninsula. You got Muhammad born. He kind of has a revelation from the angel Gabriel, which Muslims believe is the true and final message of God. He's kind of kicked out of Mecca, Muhammad, for kind of challenging the beliefs there. He goes to Medina, gains more followers, goes back to Mecca, conquers Mecca, and his followers begin to spread Islam. Right? So you'll see kind of where it spreads for the first couple of years of the existence of Islam. Right. And by the way, you'll to be part of Islam means that you submit to the will of God. So you'll hear people who follow the Islamic faith called Muslims because I guess it's a different tense, right? Muslims basically means people who have submitted to the will of God, right? So that's why you'll hear Muslim, right? So here are the 5 pillars of Islam for you. You don't need to remember these words, right? I'm not going to ask you that, but Shahada, right? Testify that there's no God but Allah, right? He's the only God, right? Muhammad is a messenger. Salah is, offering prayer 5 times a day. Zakat is charity. Hajj is taking a pilgrimage to Mecca. And then there's fasting, right, in the holy month of Ramadan. So there's kind of the 5 pillars, right? It's similar to, I guess you could say, the Ten Commandments, right? And here you'll see a distribution of Sunni and Shia Muslims. Okay. Most of the world today are Sunni. Um, the difference between the two is pretty simple, right? When Muhammad died, his successor in them is Caliph, right? As Caliph, right? The Shia believe, that the successor of Muhammad has to be a descendant of his, right? This is his bloodline. Well, the Sunni believe, that isn't necessarily the case. It can, just be somebody who's holy, all right? And I guess most Islamists believe that, right? Since they are Sunni. Okay. So again, you'll kind of see a quick summary here of the diffusion of Islam, right? Muhammad's successors organized followers who extended Islamic control over an extensive area of Africa, Asia, and Europe through military conquest. And then you'll see Islam mainly spreads through contagious diffusion through the 17th century, right, in Asia and North Africa, right, by word of mouth, right? Because again, a universalizing religion, of course, they're trying to take in and accept as many followers as possible. All right. Also spread through expansion diffusion, right? Because through those military conquests, of course, it kind of just goes from the top down. All right. So some imagery here for you to kind of recognize the Islamic religion. Of course, here's Mecca, the city of Mecca, and here's the Kaaba in the middle, right? Where people make their pilgrimage. They will walk around the Kaaba 7 times. Right? Salah, people here praying, Muslims are praying, I should say. Right? Hijab on women, Islam women, Muslim women. Right? The mosque, right, is the house of worship. Right? And again, like Christianity, Islamic architecture is pretty hard to miss, right? You've got domes here, and you've got these towers known as minarets. All right, again, Mecca for you. So you've got that, and now Buddhism here, okay? So Buddhism, 521 million adherents, not as big. There are divisions in Buddhism as well, the Theravada and Mahayana. Theravada are kind of old school, while the Mahayana are kind of new school Buddhists, right? Hearth in India, it's successful in Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia, Nepal, Tibet. So the beliefs of Buddhism here, there's a single founder, Siddhartha Gautama, otherwise known as the Buddha, the original Buddha. The holy book is the Mahayana Sutra. There isn't really a sacred site in Buddhism. I guess you could say most temples are holy sites for them, for Buddhists. And you'll see the beliefs kind of stem from the Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path. And I'll show you the Eightfold Path in a second. Symbols, the lotus, the pagoda. You'll also see this eight-spoked wheel, which I'll show you in a second as a symbol. So here's kind of the diffusion of Buddhism. As you can see, it goes all over Asia, right, in Southeast Asia. Right, so you got the Mahayana Sutra in red, the Theravada Buddhists in green here. Okay, so yeah, Buddhism originates in northern India. Different forms spread through expansion, hierarchical diffusion outward, blended in East Asia, and even though Buddhism, spread or kind of split from Hinduism, and for a while, was kind of dominating, parts of Asia. Hinduism later reclaimed its dominance, and to this day, it still is the most dominant religion in India, and we'll get to that. So Siddhartha Gautama here for you, the founder of Buddhism, or the enlightened one, as people call him, right? Here's the Eightfold Path for you. What Buddhists believe, right? View, right? Intention, speech, action, right? You don't need to remember all this, but it's basically being focused, saying the right thing, is doing the right thing, being mindful, right? So I think Buddhism is pretty popular, right? In at least in media, right? Popular media for its, the depiction of Buddhist monks in Buddhist temples, which vary across Asia, right? So you got images there for you. Again, pretty distinct architecture, sometimes in towers, right? Near rivers, near mountains, isolated. So, not hard to miss. Sikhism, all right. Kind of a little bit less, 30 million. There are a bunch of divisions here. The earth is in the Punjab region, which is in the modern day area of India and Pakistan, which is, right here where, you'll see my little arrow. Okay. The single founder, Guru Nanak, all right. And the holy book, the Guru Granth Sahib. I think I said that correctly, right? And kind of the belief of Sikhism kind of stems from the fact that, there are 10 gurus kind of, close to God. Right. The symbol is the Khanda, all right. And I should mention, the religions we've looked at, Christianity, Islam, those are monotheistic, right? So, they believe in one God. Sikhism is also monotheistic, okay? Buddhism, like I said, they don't really have really believe in, a God, we could say. Right. So here you can see the diffusion of Sikhism, right? As you can see, it's primarily, located in India, with several more in the United States. Okay. But like the other religions we've looked at, it's kind of spread through expansion diffusion, relocation diffusion, right? Expansion diffusion in the, the British, as they pushed into India during colonialism and battled Sikhs. Eventually, of course, they colonialized India, and they were pushed back to the border of India. Relocation, in the sense, the Sikhs, kind of left, right, India, right, and went to the United States, right. And you'll see that there are large populations in Canada and the United States. Okay. I should say Sikhism is one of the newer universalizing religions. It was founded in the 15th century, and they believe that devotion to God will bring liberation from the cycle of life, or death and rebirth, right? They also believe that men and women are equal, right? So, belief in humankind as one people or one person. Okay. Right. So you'll see Sikhs here. Right. Sometimes they're mistaken for Muslims, I should say. Okay. You can see the architecture here. It's kind of similar to Hinduism. But you'll see those gold, that golden looking yellow dome there. All right, so those are universalizing religions. We've got ethnic religions next, and these are found near the earth, and again, spread mainly through relocation diffusion. We'll begin by looking at Hinduism, which is often regarded as one of the oldest religions in the world. Over 1 billion adherents. Again, there are a bunch of, subgroups and sects in Hinduism. The earth is near the Indus River Valley, near Pakistan. There is no single founder. Hinduism kind of comes from a collection of beliefs way back when, right, 6,000 BC and even before, right, recorded history of people in the Indus River Valley, kind of meshing their religions over time. They do believe in Brahman, though, which is an eternal spirit. I guess you could say they're God, right? But that being said, there are different gods and goddesses in Hinduism, which, are different expressions of Brahman. Okay, so in that sense, Hinduism is polytheistic, which means that they believe in 2 or more gods. Okay, they also believe in reincarnation, or the idea that souls are constantly being reborn, and that's all based on one's karma, right? The negative and positive effects of one's actions, right? So if you're doing good things, right, I'm being really simplistic here, right? But you could be reincarnated as some animal, right? While positive karma, means you have a higher state of being, right? The symbol here is what's known as an Om, and I think I put in this PowerPoint. Okay. So you'll see, Hinduism, It's mainly in India, right? With bits in Australia, in the United States, in the Middle East, and South Africa. So again, it's polytheistic, and Hinduism kind of existed before recorded history. So you'll see here images of Hindu temples, right? Kind of vary, but you'll see that they're pretty much, towers in a sense. All right, and then you got Judaism, okay? 14.5 million adherents, right? Not as popular as many of the other religions we looked at. You'll see that there's Reform Judaism, Orthodox Judaism, Conservative Judaism, and its hearth in Jerusalem, right? In where Israel is today, the country of Israel. So it spread from there, right, due to several diasporas, right? The single founder is Abraham. The Holy Book is what's known as the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Bible in the Old Testament. 10 Commandments guide the belief of Judaism, and it's monotheistic, right? The symbol, right, Star of David. Okay. So Judaism develops among the Hebrew people in Southwest Asia, again, in present-day Israel and Lebanon. So again, right, ethnic religions mainly spread through relocation diffusion, and I'll get into that in a second here, but with Jerusalem, deteriorating conditions over time in Israel led to many of the Jews living there to disperse throughout the Roman Empire. And really the reason for that is because, the Roman Empire, by the time of, the 60s, like literally the 60s, like 66 AD or CE, right? The Roman Empire kind of sacks Jerusalem, and Jews are kind of dispersed throughout Europe. They settle across the Mediterranean into Europe here later on. But there's peace for a while, but the Crusades, right, kind of broke that peace, where many Jews had to convert or be killed. Right, later on, you've got some Jews here near where Rish is today, right? Who migrated to the United States in the 19th century, and then of course you've got Nazi Germany as another famous example, or I guess infamous example, right, of Jewish people relocating, and for what happened in World War II. Okay. So the Torah here for you, right? Some imagery here. The Wailing Wall, otherwise known as the Western Wall in Jerusalem, right? One of the most visited locations for Jews. Right, you'll see the Star of David here, and you'll see what's known as a synagogue. Okay. You see people wear their men wear their the yarmulkes. I think I said it correctly, right? See rabbis. Okay. So yeah, there you go, you guys. Diffusion of religion and language. All right, it's a lot to take in. So make sure you look at the world religions chart that I uploaded onto Schoology. It kind of organizes the 5 religions for you, so that at least you know what the difference is between some of them. All right, I think Hinduism and Buddhism might confuse some of you, so hopefully that'll be helpful. But yeah, let me know if you have questions.